What's up guys, welcome to vizxlization. Nestor Adrianzen here again. Quick question, are you enjoying DAX so far? If so, you will definitely enjoy the second part of DAX basics in Power BI Desktop. Hey, before we get started, if you are new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss anything. Alright, so now let's do this guys. So here's our agenda. So we're going to start creating a basic calendar table. Then we will create a relationship between this calendar table and the fact table that we have already in the model. And then at the end guys, we're going to create an awesome Power BI report with all the information that we have acquired in this tutorial. Okay, so now let's go to the first point. So now we need to create a basic calendar table. So a calendar table is really important for a couple of reasons. It gives the model the flexibility to perform time intelligence calculations. For example, you can create relationships between a date table or calendar table and other tables in the model, right? And also you can slice data by using one of its columns, which is the date column. This calendar table also has a couple of things that we need to be aware of. It should include all dates in the period to analyze, really important. It should have one column of date time type as well. So each day should be represented by a single row. There should be no gaps in the data. So if you guys want to learn more about calendar tables, I already created a couple of videos. I'm going to share with you the link so you can go and check the content there as well. But our first task here is to create a calendar table and also add a customized column to this table. So we need to go to Power BI Desktop and let's start playing with our data. So here we are in Power BI Desktop and our first task here is to create a calendar table. So let's go to modeling here and let's start creating our first table here. So we're gonna call this table dates equal here, and we're gonna use this powerful function called calendar here, and we're gonna use here date. We're gonna add right here year, and as reference we're gonna select the minimum date that we have in the model, and for this particular case this should be date from the financials table, right? So close parentheses here, and then for month the good practice here is to select the first date of the year, which is January 1st. Okay, so let's do that. Let's close parentheses here and then comma here, and for the end date we're gonna do something similar here, date, so it's gonna be year as well, and then for date, for this case we need to select max value, right, from the date column from the financials table as well. So close parentheses here, and then for month we need to select the last date of the year. So we are talking about December here and 31st. So this is a good practice as well. Alright, so I'll enter, close parentheses, and let's hit enter here. There you go, it's working now. Perfect. So if you guys remember, we need to add a new column here. So we need to enrich this calendar table, right? If we go back to data here, for example, so we have already this calendar table with one column, right? So our goal is to enrich this table. So how do we do that? You can go to column tools here and then add new column. So we can name this new column as year month, for example, equal here, and we're going to use this powerful function called format. For value we're going to reference the first column of the calendar table, okay, and then format, it's going to be year, right, and then space here, two M's that represent month, okay, close quotation marks here, and then close parentheses. Let's hit enter and see what happens. There you go. So now you have another column called year and month. If you want to keep enriching this table, you can do that. But for this particular case, we're going to stop there, okay? So now, let's go back to our presentation. All right, so we already created our dates table. The next step here is to create a relationship. So let's do that. Let's go back to Power BI Desktop. Okay, so here we are in Power BI Desktop again. So let's go to Model here. And the next step here is to create a relationship. So here we need to connect the date column from the dates table with the date column from the financials table. There it is. Let's drag it right there and let's see what happens. See? Automatically, my friends, it's there. So we already have the connection here, date, and also we have date from the calendar table, many to one, single, and this relationship is active. So we are good to go there now. Hit OK. And there are a couple of things that we need to be aware of this as well. If we go back to data here, so this type should be the same. The data type should be the same. For this particular case, we can select just date if we want. And then right here, the format, let's select this one right here. Okay. And we're going to do the same with the other table. Okay, so let's select financials here, and remember date, it's already, let's select right here, it should be date here. We can do that here as well, the same format. Okay, just double checking that. All right, so that's how it works, my friends. Now let's go back to our presentation and see what else we have there. We need to create a table to store measures. So this is a good practice as well. So let's do that. Let's go back to Power BI Desktop. Because we want to start creating measures, right? We're going to start playing with the data. So a good practice is to create a new table just to store measures. So how do we do that? Let's hit home here. And then there is an option here called enter data. Here right there. And now what we can do here is to name this underscore DAX measures. Okay. All right. So let's hit load. But there you go. It's right there. So this table is empty. So there is actually one column here, but we can delete this later. We already have this new table to store measures. Okay. Now let's go back to our presentation and see what else we have there. Aggregation functions. In Power BI, we have so many DAX functions, right? A good practice, according to my experience, is to learn the basic but critical functions, right? For this particular case, we have two functions here. We have the sum function and we also have the sumx function. Just to give you more background about this type of functions, the aggregation functions return a scalar value applying an aggregation function to a column or to an expression evaluated by iterating a table expression. And we have right here two questions as well, just to keep going with the exercise, right? So we need to create two measures. The first measure is going to be about total profits, and then the other measure is going to be about total sales, and we want to use these two functions. Okay, so now let's go back to Power BI Desktop. All right, right click here, new measure, and we're going to start creating our first measure. So our first measure is going to be called total profit. Okay. All right, so we're going to use the sum function, and we're going to add right here every single row that belongs to the profit column. All right, so let's hit enter. It's loading. Perfect. We have just created our first measure called total profit. So now we can create another measure here. Right click, new measure, and you're gonna call this revenue. Okay, so revenue, and for this particular case we're gonna use the sumx function because this is an iterating function. Okay, so let's do that. So we need to reference a table. This should be the financials table, comma here, the expression. So for the expression here, if you guys wanna explore the data, so there is a column called unit sold. It's right there. So we need to multiply here because we are talking about revenues, right? So we need to multiply units sold by price because we are talking about sale price here. So perfect, that would be the expression here. I'll enter, and now another parenthesis here. We can also rearrange this so now it looks better. So let's hit enter. There you go. We have created, guys, two measures. If you want, just to make sure that it's working, we can add a couple of cards here if we want. Just as reference, we have revenue here. So we have revenue here. So we have revenue here, right? Remember, guys, this is just as a reference, okay? And then we can duplicate this as well if we want. And then for this card, we can add total profit, just to make sure that this is working. Perfect. So now, guys, let's go back to our presentation. Evaluation context. So this is also really important. An evaluation context is the context under which a DAX expression is evaluated. We have two types of context in DAX, right? So we have the filter context and we also have the row context. So for the filter context, it filters tables, and it's usually defined by row selection, column selection, report filters, and also slicer selection. For the row context, it iterates tables, right? And it's defined by a row iteration and also a new column creation. So if you guys remember, for the second measure that we created, we used the SumX function. So that function is an iterator. So there was the row context, okay? And also we can see this context when we create new columns. So now, guys, let's go to the next point. The calculate function. As you guys can see here, the calculate function is the most important, useful, and complex function in DAX. This function can create new filter context. So this is the reason that this function is really powerful. We can modify the filter context, right? And we also have a couple of examples about this function here. So now let's go to the next point. So now let's take a look at calculate modifiers. So calculate modifiers change how the new filter context is prepared. With the help of these modifiers, we will change the filter context. And we have here as a reference 5 different modifiers, but we will be focused on the first one, the all function, okay? The all function removes existing filters when used as a filter argument. And we also have right here the syntax if you want to see how this function works. There it is. Also, as a reference, I created a tutorial about this function. I want to share with you guys the link if you want to take a look at it as well. Here we have a task as well. So we need to find the profit percentage of each product. So let's do that. Let's go back to Power BI Desktop. Alright, guys, so now we're going to create the profit percentage measure. So let's do that. Right click here, new measure. So we're going to call this measure profit percentage, okay? Here we're going to use variables, okay? So the first variable is going to be called total profit here. Total profit equal here. So we're going to reference the first measure that we created, okay? Which is total profit here. It's right here. There you go. I'll enter here. The second variable here, we're going to call this all total profit, okay? So remember that variables, the name of a variable should be together. There's no space allowed there, okay? So I'll enter here, and we're gonna use here the powerful function called calculate, okay? So we're gonna reference here total profit as well, the previous measure, okay? And now here is where we're gonna use the all function. So we wanna remove any filters that belong to a specific column, okay? For this particular case, we're gonna use the product column, okay? There you go. So we can rearrange this a little bit better if we want. and now I'll enter, close parentheses. There you go. So what's happening here? So we are saying, let's remove any filter that belongs to the product column from the financials table. Let's keep going here. I'll enter, and let's use return. And here we're going to use a divide function as well, because we are talking about ratios here, right? The numerator should be total profit, but it should be the variable that we just created, right? Denominator, this should be all total profit, the other variable as well. Close parentheses, and let's hit enter, and let's see what happens. It seems like it's working, guys. So if you guys are not familiar with variables, I'm going to share with you a link as well, so you can take a look at that content, okay? All right, so now let's see if this is working. Let's create a table here real quick, okay? And now, because we are filtering product, let's go to the financials table here, and let's drag product here into this visual. It's right there. Perfect. So the next step here is to use the total profit measure here, just to make sure that this is working. And now we're gonna drag profit percentage here. So now we can also add right here the percentage symbol there, so we can visualize this better. So now, as you guys can see, we found the profit percentage for each product. Okay, so it's working. All right, so now let's go back to our presentation and see what else we have there. Time intelligence functions. So these functions are really powerful as well. As you guys can see here, time intelligence functions enable you to manipulate data using time periods, including days, months, quarters, and years, and then build and compare calculations over those periods. So today we're gonna look into two different time intelligence functions, the dates year to date and also the date at function. Just to give you more background about these two functions, the dates year to date returns a table that contains a column of the dates for the year to date in the current context, and we are referencing here the dates column from the calendar table. For the date at function, this returns a table that contains a column of dates shifted either forward or backward in time by the specific number of intervals from the dates in the current context. Okay, as you guys can see here, we're going to be referencing the dates column from the calendar table as well, and then it depends, we will see maybe -1, -2, it depends on the calculation that we want to perform. And also the interval here, this can be month, year, quarter, or day. Here we have a task as well. So we need to find the year-to-date profits and also previous month profits. So let's go back to Power BI Desktop. Okay, so right click here, new measure. So we're gonna call this year-to-date profit, okay? All right, so we're gonna use the calculate function here. We're gonna reference the total profit measure that we already created, that measure. Right here, we're gonna use this powerful function called days year to date. Okay, so we're gonna reference here the calendar table. If you guys remember, the dates column from the calendar table. Let's close parentheses here. Let's rearrange this a little bit better, and let's hit enter and see what happens. Boom! It seems like it's working, guys. All right, let's see. Let's create a quick visual here. How about this one right here? All right, so we're gonna use the date column, enter right here, and then right here we're gonna select date only. Okay, what else? So let's use the new measure that we just created. Okay, this is the year-to-date profit. Boom, there you go, my friends. That's how it works. We can also add right here data labels if we want. Boom, perfect. This is working. This is working awesome. Okay, so now the other question that we had here is to create a previous month profits. Okay, so now let's create a new measure here. Right click, new measure. and we're gonna call this profit last month. Okay, equal here. I'll enter, calculate. Right here we're gonna reference the first measure that we created. It's right there. I'll enter, and now we're gonna use the date add function. Okay, dates, we're gonna reference here the date column from the calendar table, and number of intervals, this is gonna be -1, and because the question was about last month, so we're gonna reference here month. Okay, close parenthesis, I'll enter, close parenthesis. Let's rearrange this. Boom, there you go. Let's hit enter. Perfect, it's working, my friends. So now let's add another visual here. Okay, Control C, Control V here just to duplicate this. And now what we can do here is the following. Let's remove profit percentage here, and now let's add here the last measure that we created. It's right there, and here we're gonna remove profit. Okay, and we're gonna add right here dates. There you go. And also right here we're gonna select date. Perfect. So that's how it works, my friends. Now if you guys can see this, you can clearly see that the measure that we created is working perfectly. We have November 2013, right? And then in October we have this amount for profit, and then for last month this is the amount which matches what we have right here. It's the same, and the same thing is happening for the other months. So this means that this measure is working properly. There you go. Powerful DAX functions. So now let's go back to our presentation and see what else we have there. So now guys, this is the time we need to use our created measures, and also let's use the right visuals to create an awesome Power BI report. So let's do that. Let's go back to Power BI desktop again. Alright, so we already have a couple of visuals here, right? So for example, total profit, it's already there. Let's rearrange this a little bit better. Revenue, let's delete that, we don't need that for this particular case. And then for this one right here, how about if we change the visual? Okay, let's remove total profit here, and now let's select this visual right here. Perfect. So now let's add right here data labels if we want. There it is. So it's working. All right, so there you go. So this one right here, so let's leave it as is. So what else can we do here? So how about if we add a slicer here? Let's do that. And now let's add right here date. Let's add right here date hierarchy. There you go. We can also remove day and also quarter if we want. All right. So we are trying to create a really nice report here, okay? So now, what else can we do here? So how about if we add another slicer here? Let's do that. And let's select right here country. How about that? Country right there. And right here, what we can do is drop down. Perfect. There you go. Let's keep selecting this slicer here, okay? Let's go to here to format, selection options here, and then let's hit this option. So that means that we have the total option there selected. It's working. So let's add right here another visual. How about this one right here? Let's add right here country. And then we can add total profit here into for size. There you go. Perfect. So this looks better now, right? We can add another visual here if we want. So let's do that. Let's duplicate this. Control C, Control V. All right, so let's remove right here this measure. And now, how about if we add revenue here? Revenue. And now let's change this to line chart. Boom. There you go, my friends. All right, perfect. So this looks better now, but let's add a couple of details here. Alright guys, there you go. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. We just played with the visuals here. We rearranged this a little bit better. You can see the difference here. This is a powerful way to create dashboards or reports in this particular case. Now let's go back to our presentation and see what else we have there, okay? Alright guys, that was it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If so, as always, please give me a thumbs up, share with your friends, and of course don't forget to subscribe because you don't want to miss anything. Thank you guys and see you in my next tutorial.